Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media, and Thomas is going to let you know what he thinks about the Mueller report. Now, full disclosure, you haven't read all of it yet, have you?
No, I've only read 69 pages.
Okay, 69 pages. So what we're going to do...
And all of Trump's responses.
Okay, so this is the response to the first 69 pages, Trump responses, and then later today you're going to read some more and we'll do another dump. Is that how it's going to work?
Yes.
All right, go for it. Douglas Gabriel, what do you think about the Mueller report?
Garbage. It is exactly equivalent to the 9/11 Commission report. It is a fake cover-up, and we'll go into why in a minute. It is equivalent, which is basically the perpetrators investigated the situation. Remember, Mueller came in, faked that he had appendicitis so that he wasn't the head of the FBI at the time of 9/11. And then he comes in 2 weeks later, after an appendicitis, which people walk out of the same day. He comes in, and what does he do? He and John Brennan, who had just set up the first ever counterterrorism department in the CIA, turn everything in America to terrorism, and they passed the U.S. Patriot Act, which had already been written. They already tried to put it in effect twice before with a vote, but they made it all then focused on terrorism. And since then, we've been in what's called the Long War, the War of Terrorism. That is Mueller's war. Robert Mueller's war. Mueller looked at Tower 7 free fall, knowing no building in history, metal building in history, has ever done that, and did nothing about it except cover it up. He did the same thing with this. Now, what you're going to see in this report, if you read it, and I highly recommend that you read it if you have a stomach for garbage, because what you'll see is there'll be 3/4 of a section where they do nothing but complain about Trump, insinuate, make innuendos, and basically what you're seeing in the news, create the path for impeachment. But not with any facts, not with any reality. So here's what they do. They say, this happened on this day, and look, Trump said this mean thing about somebody at the same time, 2 days later. So they're trying to insinuate that he colluded all along. Everything that happened in the election that was bad is in this report. Every single thing that Trump said that was negative is in this report. But after 3/4 of this section says all this garbage, and I mean it is garbage, The last part, one paragraph, and that's what Bill Barr was quoting when he gave us a report, it says there was no collusion, no corruption, no conspiracy. And by the way, there can be no obstruction because Trump was told there was no investigation. So how could he obstruct an investigation that didn't exist?
Well, how can he obstruct an investigation that was based on a false narrative?
Exactly.
I mean, it's a lie to begin with. How can you obstruct truth coming from the lie?
Exactly. It's this thing, are you still beating your wife?
If anybody's obstructing, it's Mueller because he just produced garbage.
Mr. Trump, we want to ask you only one question. Are you still in bed with Putin? This is the report. There's the report. But the deal is, it completely exonerated him because anybody who really knows what they're thinking and what they're talking about when it comes to these issues knows that there is no substance. There's nothing to hang it on. He did nothing wrong. He's 100% innocent. Yes, he was fussy because there was a coup d'etat going on. There was election meddling going on. There was an attack against him as president-elect going on. But this report, I would love to go sentence by sentence with Mueller sitting next to me, because there's not a sentence that is true until you come to the paragraph which says that he's completely innocent and clear of any collusion, corruption, conspiracy, or the crazy charge of obstruction, which they're going to still try to hang something on. And the idea that Congress can conduct an investigation without a crime that's just stupid. Well, this was an investigation without a crime, so it's stupid. Now, one thing I want to say very clearly. When you read this, you're going to go, by golly, this report reminds me of something. What is it reminds me of? By golly, I just can't get it out of my craw. What is it? This report sounds like it was written by someone that I know. It sounds exactly like another report that I know. What report would that be, folks? The Russian Dossier, which in fact was written by these same people, the same Democrats, the same corrupt Department of Justice, State Department, FBI, CIA, all the corrupt people then moved into the counterintelligence attack against Trump during the election, and then that became the Mueller investigation. They literally say this. They literally say this in the report, that this report, that the Mueller Special Counsel investigation continued the Crossfire Hurricane counterintelligence operation that John Brennan started without any intelligence. There was no crime. There was no insinuation of a crime. And we've told you the real story. And so you've been hearing it now for over 2 years. We've been hearing it since the beginning, since Comey started lying and getting caught for his perjury. We've been telling you. I'm not going to tell you that story today. I'm going to tell you the lies that they put in this one. Oh my gosh. Now, what's interesting is, so far in 69 pages, and it's very easy to understand what they redacted, by the way, so far, but and why they redacted it. And it's all their basic system of the way they do this. They have to redact it because there are a bunch of people mentioned in there. Notice that you aren't getting any mention anywhere of who Mueller actually cross-examined in the grand jury. Over 80 people were called and were, in fact, on the stand. But 500 people were interrogated. 500 people. Where's the list of those 500 people? Where's the list of those who received immunity? They go into great detail, unbelievably stupid, childish, junior high school detail about George Papadopoulos, but they don't give you the real details. It's all one-sided. It's the same thing as the dossier. The dossier's authors are the author of this. Remember that. So as you're reading this, it's the same garbage that we had from the dossier, but there's going to be no reference to the dossier, no reference to anything of any content.
Yep, no, all references back to CNN and all the fake news sources.
Now, we had told you of a site that we couldn't understand. I'm not going to tell you the name of it because it doesn't really matter. But it's the site that I've been following. And that site is basically a Mueller site. And every single thing that was negative about Trump is on that site and was leaked from the Mueller investigation. Everything. Things I never even heard of. Things that never made it into the news. Complete made-up garbage. Okay? And I followed along with this, and every time they'd add something to it, I'd say, oh my gosh, what are you talking about, Henry Greenberg? What are you talking about? Henry Greenberg is a Russian. And what are you talking about that Henry Greenberg took Roger Stone to Florida and tried to give him dirt on Hillary Clinton, and they tried that as a Russian setup to Stone, but Stone wasn't even part of the campaign at that time. They put that in the report. That leak, which Stone has never even made reference to, no one's made reference to, ever, except that it was leaked. It's in the report, and it was leaked, and it was put on this list of condemnations of Trump. And I was reading this list going, wait, some of these people are made up. Some of these people don't exist. Why is this reporter making this list with made up stuff? Well, hello. That's what this is. Let's go into the made up stuff about the hack of the DNC. Completely a lie. Oh my word. If you want to get disgusted and you've actually been following this closely, go to that section. And they say there, and then you can understand why they
and this is not far into the report. This is like around 40, 45, pages.
Yes.
You can see all of this. I mean, you read it and you go, well, how come you haven't mentioned Dmitry Alperovitch here?
Now, mind you, there's no evidence in any of this. It's only conclusions. The evidence they use for their notes at the bottom, their footnotes, are quoting CNN and mainstream media, quoting Twitter, quoting idiot, stupid people that have no validity whatsoever. As a matter of fact, you know that they are completely biased. That's what they're quoting as their evidence. So in this report, there is no evidence. There are foregone conclusions, a priori assumptions, and just really bad lawyering, really bad legal presentation. No judge could possibly accept this report because it is nothing more than a legal summation. It's basically when a lawyer does a legal brief and presents it, they're allowed to lie.
I don't know. Amy Berman Jackson looks like a judge that'll take anything the globalist puppets give her.
Well, this wouldn't pass because it can't hold water because there's no facts in it. Notice that the Dems are going to be going crazy because they're going to say, we want the facts, we want the full report. In other words, they want there was 1 million pages that they extracted in the second time, once they took over Facebook. The Mueller investigation took over Facebook. That's where they got most of this garbage. And that was after they accused Zuckerberg of holding back evidence. Zuckerberg, they said, give us all your stuff on Russia. So Zuckerberg gave him, $100,000 worth of payments from about 40 to 70 contacts. This was all released. Okay, now it's zoomed up to, oh my gosh, they've quadrupled the numbers. They've multiplied times 10 the effect that it had. They made up lies. They forget what they've already released to the press. They have released evidence to the press through leaks. And that evidence is the fake Russian interference in the election by using Facebook and the internet. All lies. That was the Global Engagement Center paid for by Obama, $86 million directly to a Strategic Communications Laboratory. We know this for a fact. We have the contracts. We know it. So all those things are lies. And in a minute, I'll go into further lies. But let's talk about the DNC hack. There was no DNC hack. And at the end of this report, I love it. Same thing. 9/10 of what they state about this is all a lie. They literally make it up. They make up GRU, basically Russian NSA government agent. They came up with their names, and they even know their special code numbers. Isn't that special? But they can't stop Russia. But they, in this case, know every detail of all 13 GRU Russian spies. They know everything about them. They know their inner thoughts. They literally know their Googles. They literally tell you the date and time of Googles that show you that those Googles indicate that they must be Guccifer 2.0 or the DC leaks or the DCCC leaks. Now, let's get into this. The DNC, they accuse it of being a Russian hack. It's not. It's not. At the bottom, they actually state the name of the person. At the bottom of this section, they state the name of the person who gave the memory drive to WikiLeaks. And so therefore, they literally state who that is, okay? And then they mention Seth Rich, and they laugh about that, saying, oh, how stupid it is to think that someone would put it on a memory disk and then try to give it to somebody. Well, we know that he was scheduled to give that memory disk to the FBI the next day.
But see, that's the
way
way
killed that night.
The Mueller report is used to close off their rat lines.
That's exactly it. I'm so glad you said that. This is wrapping up all the loose ends of all their criminality. That's all this is. This is a huge cover-up. And you can tell by the lies, you can tell by the fact that everything with the DNC hack that was really Imran Awan, the only person who had access to all of that, and we know he did because of the testimony of the IT people he worked with at Congress.
No mention of Imran Awan.
Oh, no mention of Imran
none.
Awan. No. He would be blacked out because he's an innocent person. Okay? So he's redacted because he's innocent. Now, remember, the same SES people redacted this as redact all the rest of the stuff. Don't forget that. So the redactions redacted the real criminals. But you won't see any redactions on the people who should be protected. Like Stone's not finished. Why are they using Stone's name? Corsi's not finished with his case. Why are they mentioning his name? They can't even say his name. It's supposed to be secret he was ever called. All of it was supposed to be secret, but nope, every bit of it is in there. And as I say, a bunch of stuff that never happened. But it's in that report, and it was also leaked. So they say in here the name of the person. Now, we also know the name of the second person who got the first copy of the memory disk. There was a person, Craig Murray, who says he received it from a person who was a middleman for Seth Rich. Okay? Now, they are saying Julian Assange is a Russian because it was the Russians who hacked it. They're also saying whoever hacked the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, that would be Hillary and Podesta's computer, and then later Podesta's emails and Hillary's emails, that that's the same person called Guccifer 2.0, which is absolutely wrong. Anyone with a brain would see that Guccifer 2.0 took what had already been released, changed it, posted it, and tried to make money off of it. Okay, folks? So it is a complete lie. And anyone who looked at the evidence, which they don't present any of this evidence, very clearly, Guccifer 2.0 got in an argument with Dmitry Alperovich, the only person who ever looked at the DNC server. But now in this report, you have unbelievable amounts of detail about everything concerned with this, though they have never once looked at that server. And now they're telling you that there were proxy servers. Yes, that was in Basira's office in the Congress, and that was Imran Awan's server. And then he had a second proxy server in his basement where his cousin actually sold this stuff to everybody who wanted it, or gave it to the Pakistanis, gave it to the Israelis, because it was a complete and comprehensive hacking. It wasn't a hacking. It was an incursion. It was an intrusion by a spy. Imran Awan never had a background check, and yet Andre Carson petitioned for a year and a half. Andre Carson, the first Muslim in Congress, and Imran Awan, a Pakistani national who came in through lottery, along with all of his relatives, who they were being paid more than congressional representatives make. And he didn't even go to work. And he didn't do the work. And we know all of this. But he was given complete exoneration. So when they look at the DNC, they cover all of that. They called it a hacking by Russian GRU, and then somehow they magically figured out exactly the names of these people, and they indicted them. But they can't give us one single speck of evidence, not one line of code, not one screenshot of anything they ever did. They won't give us anything that they accuse Facebook, that they used Facebook for, that they say these supposed members of the Internet Research Agency, the IRA, which we'll go to that in a minute, that they supposedly posted. They can't show us any of that. They can't show us any of the payments of these supposed Russians because they're all using alibis. No, I'll tell you what they did in a minute. But the point is, they covered their tracks completely, and the accusations are so pathetic. If you know this story, you will know that every single thing they say is a lie.
Well, actually, we do know this story because as they spent 2 years in their Russia collusion, delusion, illusion, we were out investigating what was really going on. And for example, the last thing that Robert Mueller is going to tell you is that this report was written also with the help of our vendor Sambai and the British, and that's been done since 9/11. But you see, that's the truth.
Remember that he called all of the people. Mueller called and interrogated all of the people, practically, that we have named that were the real criminals, and we've named 25 real criminals, literally Russian criminals that should be arrested for this. None of them will be arrested because some of them are actually FBI assets. And so they have to protect their methods and sources. They have to protect these sources. The sources are the criminals who did it, and the methods are the criminality that they're hiding. Okay? So, what we really had here was a complete cover-up. And the foregone conclusions, a priori assumptions, and pathetically arrived at non-logical conclusions that they give you in this report, folks, are lies. I would debate it all day long. Like, they even came up with the Russian name of someone who was connected to WikiLeaks who supposedly received the memory disk, so that it would be a Russian. So they've named every Russian they could.
Well, in light of all of this, how does this tie into Julian Assange's
They are going
situation?
to hang Julian out to dry. They say the Russians hacked the DNC, that Guccifer 2.0 is a Russian, and that he directly was in contact with Julian. They actually show the times, and this is great because they say that the GRU members, these Russian hackers, are Guccifer 2.0, but they also say that their buddy sitting next to them, on the computer next to them, one of them was the DC leak, and another one sitting next to him was the person who did the DCCC leak. And that why? Because they were battling each other online, trying to take credit for revealing more stuff. But remember, The DCCC leaks, well, that they only had Democratic material. The DNC was only Democratic material. But the DC leaks were just as much Republican as they were Democrat. That demonstrates that it was not people just trying to go after the Democrats. The Democrats had already been completely impregnated with espionage by Imran Awan. So all that they make up about net bots and these magical servers offline and these people in Arizona, these Russians in Arizona, that's all lies. No, we know exactly where they were. Trump said it in his tweets. Where is the missing server? Not only the DNC server, but Basira's server and then the off-site proxy server.
How could Mueller finish a report and not inspect the DNC server?
He didn't inspect anything.
I know. I mean, it's like he actually expects Americans to believe this garbage.
He called in the criminals to get their alibis, to give them immunity to write this pathetic dossier. Let's call it the Mueller Dossier, because that's what it is.
The Mueller Dossier, I love it.
It is the Mueller Dossier, and even if they call him before Congress, there is nothing he found because there was nothing. The only thing there is an infinite amount of Russian meddling through the DNC, through John Podesta, who literally got $35 million directly from a Putin company for Juul Unlimited during the time that he was running the campaign. I mean, let's talk about some Russian collusion here. How about the reset button that Hillary went over and told our Cold War enemy, Russia, we're resetting everything. We're going to build you a tech city and catch you up with our technology so that we can then consider you the enemy again when I run for president. And I'm going to act like when I run for president that I haven't been in bed with you. No one has been in bed more with Putin, not even his wife, than Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. They nuzzle up next to him and to President Xi of China. Because why? They're the biggest, most powerful communists in the face of the earth. And the Clintons have sold us out to the communists from Walmart, from Skolkovo, from giving them $500 billion, well, actually $500 million to build a new uranium plant, but trillions of dollars for the Skolkovo project. So when we're talking about guilty, Mueller, you didn't do anything except cover up your own guilt because you were guilty of Uranium One in this, and so is Andrew McCabe and the whole group of you. Every single person on your group, Mueller, who wrote the Mueller Dossier. Let's remember, they also had 41 members they worked with at the DOJ and the FBI. So when they say $35 million, no. That's what Mueller and his team were paid. Remember, that's 5 people. Each of them was paid $7 million. Let's get brass tacks here. The $35 million are for the 5 people he brought in from his company. The rest, that's a different bill. He can use $100 million a year. Janet Reno made that possible when she changed all the rules concerning special counsel and these kind of grand jury indictments. $100 million a year. Well, they did. They spent that much, whether you know it or not. I estimate $150 million they spent on the Mueller Dossier. And that was the 7th report. 7th report. And by the way, Mueller has yet to reference the 4 reports of the intelligence communities. The first one written in December of 2016. The next one written in January of 2000. Excuse me. The first one written was the joint effort of the entire intelligence community that found the only meddling in the entire election was the 2 Russian news agencies, Sputnik and Russia Today. And a tiny paragraph about the hacking of the DNC. And they state in the first report that Mueller should have been tagging onto, since I believe that report was well over $100 million. And then there were 3 reports. 2 of them were public. We saw them. And then there was another one that was private. We've never seen that. And then there was the Senate intelligence investigation. There was the House intelligence investigation. 7 investigations. Mueller doesn't reference any of them. Doesn't reference a single speck of evidence. And that's why Nadler and Cummings and Pencil Neck, Schiffhead is screaming for the evidence. There's no evidence presented. There is no evidence, folks. There's no evidence. What are they going to do? Pull out the PP dossier? That's what they should do, because what the entire thing was predicated upon. Why isn't that in the report? Why aren't the methods? Why don't they tell us how that happened? That's why Bill Barr says what? He says, I'm going to look at the genesis of this. And the genesis does not go back to the end of July 2016 with John Brennan starting Crossfire Hurricane. No, no, no. In this report, it clearly states March, what I have told you for 2 years. Well, not 2 years, almost 2 years. It started actually in December, but this report literally states that it started in March, full on. And that's when the hacking started, and that's when the FBI knew about it. Hello? From March, and then they publicly claimed that it happened in April and that it was no big deal. And then, and then they're touting, I love it, out of all the WikiLeaks that they say, the terribly damaging stuff that was stolen, I forget the number that he's using. It's an astronomical number that which cannot be hacked. You cannot hack. I believe he's referring to almost 1 million documents in caches and in parts of this server, or I don't even know what he's talking about. He's saying that there were other servers, obviously, in the DNC. There was more than one. There has to be, according to this report, because he's saying that they were all breached, and hacked, and that he's referring to the documents that they took. But then he's saying, look, they took these sensitive documents, and then you know what? Stupid Mueller, SS Herr Nazi Mueller quotes then? He quotes that they hacked in to the DNC and they took the file on Trump oppositional research. I've read the file. Anyone can read it. It's WikiLeaks. Read it. You know what the file says? They can't find a single darn thing on Trump. They are at their wits' end. They don't have any oppositional research on him. And they mention what they looked into, which was all the Russian connections, and no. They state they have nothing. And that is the first oppositional research paid for Fusion GPS through Perkins Coie that Bill Kristol and Washington Beacon claim they paid for as Republicans for oppositional research on Trump. Lies. That was the first set. And then after that, then they decided to literally write the PP dossier, and they have 6 sources of that. I've mentioned all of that to you. They don't mention any of those sources. They don't mention the PP dossier in this so far to page 69, and yet they're, they are clearly insinuating that there is collusion. That's why the Dems' heads are exploding, because as they read this, they think that's collusion, because it was written that way to insinuate collusion. Collusion for this, collusion for that. We'll see in a minute. But the reality is, we've already showed you the facts. And the facts are, it's the opposite of what this report is. So, this is the Warren report. Before John Kennedy was killed, he said he was going to take the CIA and break it into 1 million pieces, or many pieces, cast it to the wind. And he fired Allen Dulles, one of the most evil people in U.S. history, who was the head of the CIA. Allen Dulles refused to leave. Okay, the president fired him. He's his subordinate. This is just like Comey. Allen Dulles refused to leave. He then was the leader of the group of, there's multiple groups used, because they had, I forget how many different shooters, 5 or 6 different shooters that day to make sure that Kennedy was dead, all directed by Allen Dulles. And then who do you think ran the Warren Commission that looked into who killed John F. Kennedy? That's right, Allen Dulles. Robert Mueller was completely complicit with 9/11. Who do you think was part of the who do you think led the investigation? That's right, Robert Mueller. Robert Mueller was completely complicit with Uranium One, completely complicit with what his buddy Comey and all of his subordinates that he's been working with. This is since the 70s, folks. We told you that cabal. We told you the names of the cabal. Same group here. They've been working together since the 70s with Clintons and with stealing patents so that they would be the richest people and control the most powerful things in the world. The Federal Bridge Certification Authority, which we've told you all about, and the way that that's been stolen from America. It's not even in the hands. It's in the hands of Hillary Clinton and Robert Mueller, are 2 of the main people holding these Every time you do anything on the internet, you pay a tax to those people. That's who conducted this stupid investigation, which was a continuation of Crossfire Hurricane and is nothing more than another Russian dossier PP document. But in the end, he knew that if he accused Trump of anything, and he made up any lies that then he said there was a crime, that it would be used for impeachment and it wouldn't go through. Now we're talking insinuation, innuendo, and all the nonsense the Dems exploding heads are talking about, and the idiots on MSM, mainstream media. What are they talking about? Some of them are saying, hey, we got it wrong. Why? Because if they don't backtrack now, oh Lord, they're going down. If they stick to their guns and their lies, that's racketeering, that's a monopoly, that admits that they know that Avid and ISIS Management, which are their prompters in all mainstream media except Fox, and sometimes they use it, they don't do any research. They simply read it and they know that it's lies. And if that's the case, they can all be sued. And now we're seeing this. We're seeing mention of antitrust and monopoly and RICO and everything else concerning mainstream media, as well as many lawsuits. So they can't lie and get away with it. There's actually one law that doesn't allow that. So if they don't back off, but now politicians, they're allowed to lie. That's their job. Their job is to lie for their extreme side, so that they can convince people to vote for them. What is this? This is the Mueller Dossier. Do not look for any facts in this. The only facts are what Bill Barr read and what Trump keeps saying, full exoneration. Now, I want to just mention that there's two parts to this. Part one is this nonsense. It's all the innuendos. Part two is going to be worse. Part two is going to be, well, Trump said this, Trump said that. It's going to be all his tweets. They are literally going into crybabying, whining that Trump said this or said that or did this mean thing or crossed his arms wrong or held his hand out to Putin wrong or touched Putin wrong. This is what's in this report. It's unbelievable.
So you're going to go back, get some more read, and come back and report to the folks?
Yeah, because this is, it makes me upset. I can go sentence by sentence, and we can then quote our intelligence reports and our reports and show you where the truth is. But here's the reality. It's all good. You want to know why this happened this way? Because Bill Barr is as close a friend to Robert Mueller as there is. And he went and told him what we told Mueller from the beginning. If you don't end this, you're going down. You're going to take yourself down.
Well, no, he should go down. He needs to be tried for treason. And we need to go all the way back to 9/11 when we start that trial.
So Barr went and told Mueller, end this now. And what did you get? An announcement that it was going to be ended in 2 weeks. It ended in 3. Bill Barr is trying to save his friend and save all those people and let them get the heck out of here before he starts his investigations. Because if they work for the government, when he starts, they are compelled. They cannot plead the fifth. Because whether they like it or not, Lisa and Peter, the lovers, and they weren't lovers, every single thing they did on a government phone, it belongs to we the people. And they can redact what they want, but the president can unredact it. And so those are all lies. And this doesn't mention any of that. This Mueller dossier is nothing more than a piece of work to basically, it's a cover-up.